There we go. Okay. Welcome to Voltcon 2019. We're kicking things off with our Voltron 101 panel. We have Marc Morrell and Gergory Tyler from the Let's Voltron official podcast with us. And they're going to go over a little bit of the history for you, and then we're going to kick things off with opening ceremonies immediately following. So please enjoy. Thank you.
Welcome, Voltron fans! I am Marc Morrell, your host for Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast, and we're here at Voltcon for the first time ever, the first ever Voltron convention, so thank you for joining us for that. And along with me is my co-host, Greg Tyler. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, fellow Voltron fans. We're across the universe. Welcome to Voltcon 2019.
So, we're obviously here to talk a little bit about Voltron 101. You probably all come here knowing a little bit about Voltron. But
I didn't, Mark. I thought we were here for a stamp collecting convention.
Yeah. We've done this on the podcast already. We had a Voltron 101 already. Greg has also done it on lionsandpilotsandbots.com.
Yeah, check it out sometime.
So we are happy to do it again here at Voltron, at Voltcon for the first ever Voltron convention. So let's kick it off. We're going to go right to everything from what's a Voltron to certified defender today. Yay! And of course you see a whole bunch of characters. Whoa. Sorry. Of course you see a whole bunch of characters in the background there. We might talk about a couple of them. So it all started way back in September 10th of 1984. And for a lot of you, it may have started out with what we think really came out on September 10th, 1984, which for us was Vehicle Voltron. So it depends on what part of your country you're from, when you saw it for the first time. But I think it was Vehicle Voltron for me. So
It was Lion for me. You know what? They're both awesome. Let's kick this off.
So let's see. Vehicle Voltron.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes the legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe. A mighty robot, loved by good, feared by evil. As Voltron's legend grew, peace settled across the galaxy. On planet Earth, a galaxy alliance was formed. Together with the good planets of the solar system, they maintained peace throughout the universe. Until a new horrible menace threatened the galaxy. Voltron was needed once more. This is the story of the super force of space explorers. Entrusted by the Alliance with the ancient secret of how to assemble Voltron, defender of the universe.
Okay, so you may recognize this picture from the new DVDs that just came out recently. This is the Vehicle Force version of Voltron Defender of the Universe. And can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So why don't we describe a little bit about what this show is about, and then we'll describe how it melds in with the next show we're going to be talking about.
So the vehicle team, I'm an old schooler. I call it vehicle team because that's what was on all the merch back in the day. But the vehicle team Voltron characters were a group of 15 space explorers that traveled through space on the Stellar Ship Explorer, looking for strange new worlds, including worlds that they could settle because the galaxy had been overcrowded. So aboard the Stellar Ship Explorer, we had Commander Hawkins and Captain. There's a microphone here, I ought to use it. So aboard the Explorer, we had Commander Hawkins and Captain Newley, and that big old ship right there. And they're the 15 pilots of the land team, the air team, and the sea team. If you guys remember, each of those teams could combine their vehicles into a larger fighter. The turbo terrain fighter, the aqua fighter, and the strato fighter. And when things got really bad, when the drools hit the fan, the Voltron Force combined into their version of Voltron.
So let's talk about what were the reasons why they were out on the Stellar Ship Explorer.
Well, certainly exploring is kind of a big deal. It's in the name of the ship, but they had a bigger motivation, which was that the galaxies of the Galaxy Alliance were becoming overcrowded, so we're trying to find new planets to settle, and that was a big reason why they were out there.
And there was someone else out there with them.
Yes, the Drool Empire, and I don't mean drool like, but D-R-U-L-E, Drool Empire. And here were some of the more notable villains. There were quite a few, and it's really tough to keep track of them. But the most notable, I'm trying to gawk at the screen while talking, gawk and talk. Emperor Zeppo was rarely seen, the ruler of the Empire. The most commonly seen of these drools was Commander Hazar, who started out being very hostile toward the Galaxy Alliance, like the rest of the drools. But over time, he began to realize that they ought to give peace a chance. And so he worked throughout the episodes of this chapter of Voltron to try to forge peace between the Drool Empire and the Galaxy Alliance.
And that's Hazar's sister, Dorma, there in the bottom left.
Right.
Okay, so we also know that Vehicle Voltron came together with 15 vehicles combined to form one giant robot. But what was the major weapons that this robot had? So we know the biggest weapon, of course, was Blazing Sword.
Yes.
And then the spinning laser blades.
Yeah, those things were so cool.
And then we have some other weapons, the solar combat spears, the eye-wing and knuckle beams, the electro-thermal blasters, the ray beam whip, and the solar wind blasters.
You got it.
Of course, the thing that was unique about this was that it could form 3 different fighter teams and then separate again and form the giant robot.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing. And if you ever had any of the toys of this, including the new one coming out, I believe later this month from Bandai, they've got the new Soul Shogoken GX88, which I'm very much looking forward to.
And we are also going to be talking about Voltron toys at 12:30 today, so join us for that panel.
Yes, all you ever wanted to know about toys, Voltron toys.
So the land team would form together into the Turbo Terrain Fighter, the sea team would form together into the Aqua Fighter, and the air team would form together into the Strato Fighter.
That's right.
So along with that show, you also may have seen it sometime in fall of 1984.
I can't imagine anyone knows about this one.
Another show.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe. A mighty robot, loved by good, feared by evil. As Voltron's legend grew, peace settled across the galaxy. On planet Earth, a galaxy alliance was formed. Together with the good planets of the solar system, they maintained peace throughout the universe. Until a new, horrible menace threatened the galaxy. Voltron was needed once more. This is the story of the super force of space explorers. Specially trained and sent by the Alliance to bring back Voltron, defender of the universe.
So we're also talking about Lion Force Voltron, which was the other half of the show.
Yes, and some would say the better half.
So we know back in the day, back when this show was originally developed, it was meant to be a trilogy of Voltrons.
That's right. There were 3 unrelated anime series. From 1981, Beast King Go Lion, which became adapted into the Lion Force episodes. Armored Fleet Die Rugger 15, which was adapted into the Vehicle Team episodes. And then Lightspeed Electroid Albegus, which was going to have been adapted into what fans have since called Gladiator Voltron.
Yes.
But that did not come to pass.
And we also knew that the Vehicle Team Voltron was the Voltron from the Near universe.
Yeah, and the Lions were from the Far universe.
Right.
The Voltron that never was supposed to patrol the Middle universe.
Right.
I don't know how you measure near, middle, and far, but, you know.
So, in Voltron Force, in this version, of the Lion Force version, we have 5 pilots that came together as space explorers at the beginning. And, of course, this story originated from a Japanese story, but in the Voltron story, they had explored the ruins of planet Eris, right?
Yes, I think that's what it was called.
Yes. And we're not going to talk about what the original was because we have another panel coming up tomorrow at 2 o'clock, right?
That's right, comparing the original anime programs with Voltron Defender of the Universe.
Yes. So in this story, these 5 space explorers are actually captured by the Drools, and they in turn escape from the Drools, and they crash land on planet Eris again. And this time they are met by the Princess and Karan.
Princess Allura, yes.
Right. So we have Keith, Lance, Hunk, Sven, and Pidge who pilot the black, red, yellow, blue, and green lions. So, but somewhere along the line, within the first few episodes, Sven gets into a little bit of a
tiff.
yeah,
Hagar
with Hagar and a Robies, and he gets seriously injured and has to go to
seriously injured,
and has to go to the planet Ebb so he can heal. So we come up with a new configuration for the lions, and Princess Allura takes over Blue Lion. So this is the final configuration that you see throughout the rest of the show. And of course, some of our other main heroes include Karan, Nanny, the Castle of Lions, of course, and the Space Mice. Let's talk about some of those Space Mice names. We have here Cheesy, Cheddar, Suki, and Chitter, but you know some others, don't you?
Not off the top of my head, but there have been at least, I think, 11 or 12 names for these mice, if you follow the show. I imagine either they just kept forgetting the names and making up new ones, or they all just had really long names, and you just pick their first name, middle name, whatever. But I'm trying to remember Toady and, oh gosh. Cheezer, Cheezor, you got Cheddar. About 11 or 12. It's pretty crazy when you go back.
Right, but the Space Mice were critical to the story because, believe it or not, the Space Mice are in every version of Voltron out there.
Except the third dimension.
Except the third dimension. Yeah.
I know. Bummer.
We kind of missed them there, didn't we?
Yeah, let's get George Lucas to make a special edition of Voltron the third dimension, just for the mice.
And of course, the main villains in the Lion Force Voltron were King Zarkon, Prince Lotor, Witch Hagar, Commander Yorak, and then when we had the 20 episodes that got added on, we had Queen Morrell and Commander Cossack.
So let's clarify for those of us in the room, the maybe 2 or 3 of us who don't already know, that the original 52 episodes of Vehicle Team Voltron were adapted from all 52 episodes of Die Rugger. The first 52 from Lion Force from Beast King Go Lion, and then in part because the Lightspeed Electroid on Vegas show was not adapted, and because they needed to fulfill a 125 episode commitment, World Events Productions commissioned a production of 20 additional all new episodes of Voltron, and they introduced characters such as Morrell and Cossack, as well as the Fleet of Doom special, which brought the Lion and Vehicle robots together.
Right.
We can rule the galaxy together. From now on, you will all say, "Let's Zergon!"
So that was really special having Franklin and Jack there together to do that. Thank you, Franklin, for doing that with us.
Thank you for putting some pictures with it.
So, of course, Lion Voltron also had a blazing sword, which was really pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And it also had proton missiles coming out the feet. And it also had a spinning laser blade. And some other weapons were the Electro Saber, the Atomic Emblem, which is also known as the Electro Force Cross, the Lion Head projectiles, the Crystal Crown, and the Lion Lariats. And then some of the Lion weapons that all the Lions had were mouth daggers, fang missiles, tail beams. Of course, Black had the Plasma Blaster, the crossbeam, the shoulder cannon. It goes on and on.
Yeah, the Lions and Lion Voltron were basically Swiss Army knives. They had weapons coming out of places that you could never imagine. Good places.
And of course, they were fighting the road beast of the day, which was usually one of Hagar's inventions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys remember the very first episode, it was the Battle Bat Beast, which a lot of people like to call the Madonna Voltron for some reason. Why? I don't know. Okay. And then, of course, there was Bokar Snake, Trunk Tank. Zarkon himself became a row beast, so did Urek, and then there were the Twin Devils.
There were a lot. A whole lot.
Yeah.
In fact, this book right here actually has, this is from the 30th anniversary, from Days of Long Ago, a 30th anniversary celebration, co-authored by Mr. Marc Morrell. It has an entire section that is a row beast Rolodex. So, yeah, there are tons of them in there.
So this book has an amazing amount of stuff in it. We're gonna talk about this when we get to Voltron Force 2, but yeah, here's some of the row beast catalog here.
So yeah, the Pokemon have the Pokedex. There's Voltron's version.
Right. So we also had mentioned this really quickly about Lightspeed Electroid Albagas.
Yeah, so let's talk about Daltanius. Go
All
for
right.
it.
But what you might not have known, and this was one of those things that just was one of those amazing mistakes almost, that when they had originally asked for the tapes for the Voltron shows, they had asked for the one with the lion. And at the time, they were asking for Daltanius. And what they actually ended up getting was Beast King Go Lion. And that because of that, they adapted it and said that this was the show that we want to make, because they could understand it even without understanding Japanese.
Yeah, so what a happy accident.
Yes, very happy. So, of course, we had also mentioned the fact that out of those 125 episodes, the very last one was Fleet of Doom, which brought together both Voltrons in one show.
Yeah, so throughout the series, there were references here and there to the other Voltron Force, but they were pretty few and far between. They were a shared continuity, but it was loosely shared. Fleet of Doom brought them together officially, side by side, for the first and only time, and there we are.
Tonight at 10 o'clock, in the video room, they're going to be showing Fleet of Doom. So here's the opening for Fleet of Doom.
In the far reaches of the universe, the beautiful planet Aras had been enjoying peace and prosperity, thanks to the courage of the Voltron Lion Force. In the near universe, happiness reigned throughout the Galaxy Alliance, with the special help of the Voltron Vehicle Team. Goodness prevailed until the day that Viceroy Throck, ruler of the Drool High Command, joined forces with Zarkon, king of Planet Doom, and created a mighty armada to smash the Alliance. Fear and confusion was spreading across the universe. Princess Allura would be captured by Witch Hagar, and only Commander Keith could possibly rescue her. Finally, the two Voltrons would have to fight side by side to save their worlds. But would even their combined power be enough? Could the evil Armada be defeated by Voltron, defenders of the universe?
All right, so Fleet of Doom, of course, brought together Lion Force Voltron and Vehicle Force Voltron, and it's the only time you're going to get to see that. We also happen to have a DVD of Fleet of Doom right here, and I have a trivia question, and one of you can win it if you can answer this question. I just need a raise of hands if you know the answer, and then I'll call on you, okay? So the question is, what was the secret base? What was the name of the planet where the secret base was for the Galaxy Alliance in Fleet of Doom? Does anybody know that?
I don't know that.
He was there. Here's another hint. It was also a brand of car.
That's true.
Oh, yes. I know it, but I'm not going to answer.
I already own the DVD, so I will gladly let someone else.
Yeah.
Do you know it?
Metal?
No. Sorry.
Good guess, though.
Does anybody know? Okay. If you don't know that one, I have another question. Who did King Zarkon form an alliance with against the Vehicle Voltron and against Lion Force Voltron in Fleet of Doom? Which one?
It was in the opener, so there's your hint.
Yeah. Which one of the Drools did King Zarkon form an alliance with?
The character's name was... That's right,
Yes.
Viceroy Prime. That's right. Congratulations. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Some really cool bonus features on that disc as
Okay.
well.
So what was the answer to the first question?
Acura, the planet Acura.
Yeah.
Like the Acura
Yeah.
making cars. Yeah.
Like the Acura Integra?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have another trivia question later when we talk about Voltron Force. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so for about 12 years after Fleet of Doom, we were a little bit dry in the Voltron universe, but it's because they were gearing together for another exciting adventure in the Voltron universe. And here's another thing that you might not have known is one of the things that was exciting about the first Voltron was that it was done in stereo. And that was something that not too many shows did at the time in 1984. So that was something that Ted Koppler and everybody from World Events Productions wanted to bring to Voltron, putting it in stereo, and it really made for a nice experience for a lot of people. And then another new thing that was coming along in the late 90s was 3D and CGI. So one of the things that really spurred this one on, I don't know if you guys know Transformers Beast Wars. That was another big 3D show at the time.
Reboot was huge back then.
So we were introduced on September 12th, 1998 to Voltron, the Third Dimension.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, a mighty robot, loved by good, feared by evil. As Voltron's legend grew, peace settled across the galaxy. But then the evil Prince Lotor escaped from his prison in deep space. He formed a secret alliance with Hagar, mistress of dark magic, and together they summoned awesome forces of fear and destruction, threatening the universe with new, horrible menaces. Voltron was needed once again. Now comes the story of a super force of space explorers, specially trained and sent by the highest echelon of the Galaxy Alliance to bring back Voltron. This is Voltron, the Third Dimension.
Okay, so with Voltron, the Third Dimension is pretty much described what was going on in the show right there in the opener. So one thing that we didn't know was that all of the galaxies of the Galaxy Alliance had basically formed under one robot called Amalgamus.
Yes, and I was going to ask that as a non-prize trivia question, but yeah, spoilers. So we had the traditional Voltron Force. Sten was not to be seen in this show, but you had Keith, Lance Page, Hunk, and Princess Laura, and the traditional villains. Karam was along for the ride, although different voice actor there. But one thing that's fun about the Third Dimension is that many of the voice cast people were from the original show. Neil Ross, B.J. Ward, and Tress McNeil was on there, and Michael Bell, of course. So it was a lot of fun.
So we had the addition of Tim Curry as Lotor in that, which was really cool.
And he chews the dialogue so well. It's amazing. I
Yes.
love that he goes, "You do that voodoo that you do so well," to Hagar.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about this also, we had Josh Frickle on the podcast. And
Yes.
We have a special podcast where we did talk about Voltron: The Third Dimension as well. We had
Mike Young from Mike Young Productions was
Yes.
on the podcast.
and we had the two-parter that you were on with us, where,
Yes.
where we go over the episode.
Yeah, that was before I became co-host.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah.
So
They still kept me on. Is that amazing or what?
some of the great things in here was some introductions of some new things that we had never seen before. But of course, you have to have Blazing Sword, and then we had the Lion Head attack. And one thing that I don't have on here is the bow and arrow. You remember that one?
Blazing Bow.
Yes. I don't have that on here. But there was a very interesting thing that came up, and it was Stealth Voltron. Another type of Voltron that was hard to see sometimes in the show.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the light levels were pretty low on the show in general, and so when you introduced a mostly black version of Voltron, flying in the blackness of space, the stealth worked really, really well.
But it came out really clean in the toy, though.
Yes,
The toy was
it
great.
was Voltron with a hoodie, and as I've heard Mr. Jeremy Corey over here describe the lions as kind of like hamsters.
With love.
Yes, with love, and yes. So the fun part was that to convert into the stealth lions, the regular lions would fly through this portal into another dimension, and then magically they would change into the stealth configuration, and then revert when they flew back into their regular dimension.
Right. So one of the biggest opponents to Voltron in this one was Dracotron.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was basically 5 dragons, mechanical dragons from parts unknown, that could combine with this hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. That's a Toxic Avenger reference, sorry about that. But it was really cool to have this combining robo-dragon thing.
And at one point, Dracotron got so out of control that both Lotor and Hagar had to hide out in a cave because they were about to get, wasted by Dracotron.
It was fun.
And it was the Voltron force who had to save Lotor and Hagar in that,
Yeah, that was fun. Very cool.
despite what Lance wanted to do.
Yeah, and Dracotron is kind of a fun tip of the hat to the Fleet of Doom special. We did not mention that in that episode. There was a combining Robies in that episode, so this was sort of a nice echo of that Robies.
And of course, Dracotron didn't make it to the toys, right?
No.
It was
prototypes
almost there.
and you'll see
There's a
pictures of
prototype.
that in the toy presentation this afternoon.
Yes. All right. So now we're at another exciting time in Voltron's history. So we went about another 11 years there, right?
Mhm.
Before we came up for another Voltron, and this time it was called Voltron Force. Whoops. Sorry. Let me do that again.
Frankly, shaking his head at that. What'd you do to my show?
I think that's the first time I've seen it.
Sick burn.
So of course, later on, there's going to be a panel with Jeremy and Bob. So make sure you join that because you might get some more details about Voltron Force in that one as well. But at the time, it was the highest-rated premiere on Nicktoons. It was the introduction of 3 Voltron Force cadets, and it had the really exciting thing of having 5 different center lion configurations, which really changed it up for Voltron fans.
Yeah, that was very unique. Each line could form the body and head of Voltron, and with each of those configurations, Voltron had a different ultimate weapon, which was a lot of fun. And this show really rekindled my interest in Voltron. It never waned entirely, but this show really brought it back. Would you say the same?
I have to say the same. We've said this on the podcast many times, but Voltron Force is what brought Voltron back for a lot of us. And it's what inspired me to start writing for Toon Barn and doing interviews and all that kind of thing. I did episode reviews for Voltron Force. And then we were able to actually, become a part of this by doing the podcast. I was writing the book, a whole bunch of stuff where I would have never seen that happening back in 2010.
Yeah. Deputized.
Yeah. So one of the things that Jeremy sort of penned the title Brand Ambassador,
There you go.
and I feel like every Voltron out there, every Voltron fan out there is a brand ambassador. So I think we all wear that proudly.
Sure, look at all
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
We've been modest, Mark.
So some of the heroes in Voltron Force, of course, you already knew Lance, Keith, Allura, Pidge, and Hunk, and the Space Mice, and Corinne. But of course, we have Vince, Larmina, and Daniel. And of course, Daniel was the one that wanted to pilot Black Lion, and he wanted to be the leader of the Voltron Force. Vince, he was the smart one who, he was a little bit more shy and reserved.
And had mysterious powers and a mysterious background, yes.
Right, and Larmina, of course, the niece of Allura.
It came up 10 minutes into this convention, and you got to bring it up.
How is she the niece of Allura? Okay.
More at 2:30.
More at 2:30, okay. And then, of course, we had Sven. We had a whole episode of Sven. So thank you to Jeremy for writing that episode, Ghost in the Lion.
And we kept Franklin's accent. The Swedish accent.
And of course, the villains in this were Lotor. We had this weird occult scientist named Mayhawks. And then, of course, we had Sky Marshal Wade, who was...
Sky Marshal Wade, yes, Gary Chalk voicing him.
Yes, we got to see Gary Chalk at RetroCon, which was really cool.
Last year, it was amazing.
And then, of course, Commander Kala, who ended up becoming a spider robeast.
Yes, and many other Robeast variants.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as we said before, each of the lions could become the head and form the head and torso of Voltron. So you have the black center, you have the red center, the green center, the blue center, and the yellow center, and each of them brought different weapons that came with it. So, of course, the overall weapon, whenever black was the center, was the blazing sword. Then you had, when red was the center, the magma pistols. Then you had the boomerang shield when it was the Tech Ninja Voltron, whenever green was the center. And then, of course, also with Larmina's help, we were able to get the blazing katana when it was
Energy Star.
Yeah, and then with the blue center, it was the Titanic Trident, and then with yellow center was the Wrecking Maces. But another interesting aspect here was each of the weapons that each of the pilots got, which came from their Voltcons. Let's talk a little bit about Voltcons.
Yeah, you could sort of think of Voltcons as a precursor to what we know in Legendary Defenders, the Bayard. It was sort of it was a gauntlet that could have technology that would let it form weapons that were customized to the person wearing the device. So that was a lot of fun.
So I want to go back really quickly, and I just want to do a quick, let's talk about this, okay? Because we have another trivia question that we want to give away. This is called the Legend Begins DVD, and it actually has as one of the bonus features a Voltron 101, just like this. Amazing.
But not one that we worked on, actually.
Right. So the question is in the Sven episode, Ghost in the Lion, we see that Sven has a son. And it was never named in the episode. The son never got a name. But the Voltron fans came together and gave a name to Sven's son. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you know who the fans named. What was the name of Sven's son in Voltron Force? Eric, that's right.
She probably named it.
There you go. Okay. All right. So one of the things that was also cool is the cadets came together and formed their own Voltron, and it was called Awesometron.
And I cannot say the word awesome anymore without saying Tron.
So this was something that it came together. It helped save Voltron at one point.
Yes, it sacrificed itself
Yes.
to save Voltron.
That's right. And it was formed in the Hunk Yard.
The Hunk Yard, my favorite episode.
Yeah. All right, and then of course one of the biggest Robeasts that they had to fight in Voltron Force, they actually didn't defeat him the first time.
Right.
And then they had to fight him again, and then they finally did defeat him. But it was the Predator Robeast.
And this was, again, a combiner made from 5 different horrible robotic animals. And again, a tip of the hat to the Fleet of Doom combining Robeast, in that it was 5 different mechanical creatures that formed a giant machine. So,
Right. And then, of course, my favorite moment in Voltron Force, and you'll never figure out why. You ready?
Ready for this? Born for this. Let's Voltron! I like that. You got that, team? Let's Voltron! Activate interlocks. Dinotherms connected. Infracells up. Mega clusters are go. Let's go, Voltron Force!
music.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Well, there you go.
What an awesome piece of music.
Yeah, it is.
So, after Voltron Force, we didn't have to wait another 12 or 11 years for another Voltron.
How many of you know about this version? Probably everyone, yes.
I think everyone at this point remembers this one. So we found out about Netflix was going to be showing a new Voltron show, and it was actually, we had seen in Voltron the Third Dimension that was sort of a sequel to the original Voltron. And then Voltron Force was a quasi-sequel to the original Voltron. But this one is a completely new reboot from the ground up.
Yep.
So we weren't sure what we were going to get when we first saw this on June 10th of 2016, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, some people kind of like this show.
Yeah.
No notes.
So I don't know if you guys noticed when you came in, but Savannah is dressed as Princess Allura in this version of Voltron Legendary Defenders. So make sure you say thank you to Savannah for bringing that with her. Okay, so Voltron Legendary Defender. What's different about this show?
Oh, I don't know. A lot.
So there's a lot of heroes. There's a lot of villains. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of worlds. There's a big universe out there.
Yeah. Voltron Legendary Defender. So we didn't really even attempt to scratch the surface of the cast, but most of you should still remember these characters fairly well because the show didn't end until very recently. But the major addition to the cast, I would say, among the Paladins, a term introduced in this show, was Shiro, who was the new leader of the Voltron Team Voltron, and he was based in name on
He's the one with the bright pink hand.
Yes, in case you didn't already know. Named after Takashi Shirogane from Beast King Go Lion, who was adapted into Sten in Voltron Defender of the Universe. So we had a very new take on that character.
And of course, some of the other big heroes that we saw were the MFE pilots, the Blade of Marmora, the Rebels. We also had people like Shay, Commander Iverson, we had Veronica, we had Vivo B, Rommel, Prolia, Slav. Gotta have Slav.
That's right.
But yeah, so there's way more to mention, too many to mention, but they really built a lot of characters into Voltron Legendary Defender. And then of course some of the villains, we started off with Zarkon, but Zarkon got an upgrade to an Emperor. Okay, he became Emperor Zarkon, and we still have Hagar, we still have Lotor, but along with Lotor was Lotor's generals. And then we have towards the end of the show where Hagar took over as Enerva. She reverted back to Enerva, but she was even a little bit more wacky than she was when she was Hagar, I think.
Yes, yes.
And then, of course, there were a whole bunch of Galra. We say Galra in this one instead of Drool. And, of course, the Druids that Hagar had with her.
Yep.
And then just a bunch of Galra commanders. So, and of course, the Robeasts, the main Robeasts were Myzax and Pro-Rock and Drazel.
Yes.
And then, of course, we had more, like the Syncline Beast and the Druid Beasts and all that kind of
Minerva's
stuff.
Altair and Robeasts and all that good stuff.
Right.
So yeah, lots of stuff.
And of course, the Voltron weapons, we're not just going to show you them. We're going to just put them all out there as part of a big video that displays them all, pretty much, and shows how Voltron destroyed some of those Robeasts. So here we go.
The Bayard is the traditional weapon of the Paladins of Voltron. It takes a distinct shape for each Paladin.
I always thought that looked like a leaf blower.
Oh, you got a cute little Bayard.
It is pretty cute.
talked to Jeremy Shada about that Lance scream that he did there, and he said he couldn't do much after that for the rest of the day. He couldn't talk much. They saved that for the end of his session, so that was good. But during the course of Voltron Legendary Defender, of course, we had Lotor, who had 3 syncline ships that combined to form the Syncline Beast.
Yeah, again, a tip of the hat to the combining enemy robots of the previous shows.
And then, of course, later on in the series, we also saw the IGF Atlas, the ship that had replaced the castle ship. and it also was able to transform into a robot.
Yeah, check out those thigh muscles.
He was thick. So one of the things that we had a lot with this show and everything, we had a lot of guests from the show, from voice actors, directors, writers, up and down.
Producers, Joaquin Dos Santos, Laura Montgomery, many people.
And a fan favorite was Neil Kaplan. So at one point, Neil had done something special on the podcast, and of course, we had to turn it into another video.
An itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and it dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider was unfortunately crushed by a tractor trailer.
So there you have it. That's our presentation of Voltron 101.
Happy 35th anniversary to Voltron. Thanks to everyone who has had a hand in creating and making Voltron what it has been and continues to be. It's been an inspiration to every one of us here and many, many more people.
So one thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about Voltron Force is at the end of the 30th anniversary book, they did a comic by Jacob Shabbat and Brian Smith that actually kind of closes out the series, sort of, and lets you know what might have happened in that second season that we never got. So, so for many of you, you knew that Daniel had the Hegarium infection, but you might have thought it was completely gone when they had, when he said, it's gone.
Spoiler.
Right. But apparently it came back in a big way. So if you ever haven't seen it, check out the end of the 30th anniversary book. So does anybody have any questions for us for, anything?
What's new with the podcast?
So, of course, with Voltcon being here and everything, Greg and I were prepping our panels for this. So that's why you haven't seen any podcasts for the last few weeks. We did the 35th anniversary podcast on September 10th. And after this, we're going to have a few podcasts that deal with Voltcon and the things that we did here. And then, of course, we're going to go back to doing episode reviews, toy reviews, anything else that we haven't covered already. So
until the next Voltron iteration comes out. So
I don't know if we'll be hearing anything about anything like that, but we do know that there's still lots of episodes from Voltron Force that we haven't even touched yet, and still some of the remaining episodes to review from the original Voltron Defender of the Universe, both Lion and vehicle version.
And the third dimension. Yes.
Yes.
So plenty more to cover. We continue to interview people as we have opportunities to do that. So
whenever opportunities come where we can bring somebody on the podcast with us and talk to them about Voltron, we love doing that.
How are we doing on time?
We're doing pretty good.
Okay.
10:55.
Okay, really, very quickly, questions for you guys. Which ones of you were introduced to Voltron through Defender of the Universe? Show of hands. Quite a few of us. How about introduced to Voltron through the third dimension? I know there have been some.
Yeah.
You have. Wonderful, Tiffany. Yay.
Wow.
How about Voltron Force?
Okay.
Awesome. And Voltron Legendary Defender.
Raise my hand for my kid.
Okay.
We are so glad that all of you are here. Voltron's had so many great iterations that are so much fun, each individually, and when they all come together, as you all have here to Voltcon, it's such a fun celebration. So thanks to each and every one of you for coming.
So we have a little table over there. We'll be there periodically, but we'll also be taking part in all these panels and everything that's going on. There's a great vendor room that's just on the other side of this, where you can go see some vendors, including the Voltron store and plenty of others. And then on the other far reaches of the universe, there's a video room that they're showing cartoons in, so check those out as well. And in case anybody doesn't know, we're on letsvoltron.com. We're on Twitter at Let's Voltron, on Facebook, Let's Voltron. We're on Instagram, Let's Voltron, and then We also have a YouTube channel. We also have something really interesting. We have an Alexa skill. So if you have Alexa, you can go out to Alexa and say, Alexa, open Let's Voltron. And you'll get any one of like 100 different phrases that Alexa will bring back, and some you might recall.
So yeah, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're glad that you are all here. So thanks to each and every one of you.
Yeah.
How about a round of applause for each and every one of you?
Yeah. Thank you for coming to the first ever Voltron convention. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.